And there are states of emergencies all along the coast, the flooding showing no mercy. Our crew flying with Customs and Border
on one of their helicopter missions.
This storm is dumping an incredible amount of rain in this area. Surrounded by water.
Well, there's some good news, and that's that Florence has weakened since yesterday and is now a Category 2 hurricane with winds of 105 miles an hour. However, don't think that just because it's weakened that the threat is over, and that's a really important fact here.
Still to come.
Tom, this is the problem. It just keeps raining, adding to the already swollen rivers, which keep rising.
So this is still a very, very dangerous storm, not only on the coast, but also in the interior of the state. And the very unusual part is going to last for about 2 days.
Please make sure not to underestimate this powerful hurricane, as much of the state will feel impacts of damaging winds and torrential rainfall for a couple of days, followed by potentially significant river flooding. Thank you, Governor.
I think a lot of this we've talked about is because of these hurricanes we had recently, where they had the rain, where they had flooding from the ocean, and that's what causes the flooding. With the ocean getting warmer every year, those hurricanes are going to be more frequent, in my opinion. So, you know, throw it out for what it's worth. It's pie in the sky and it probably never happened. But some people have got to get on board that, if they want to go to New York.
At face value, the problem is really quite clear. Flooding. But as you begin to dig a little deeper, you recognize that this problem is more complex than water alone. To get a good understanding of what exactly was going on, I focused on the community of Bucksport. Bucksport was one of the areas that had been hit hardest by Florence. It is also an area that routinely feels forgotten when these disasters strike. Many Bucksport residents don't feel as though enough is being done to help them prepare for and deal with these disasters. And after speaking to numerous county officials, I'm beginning to understand why. It's been nearly 2 months since the floodwaters from Florence have receded. Since that time, I've spoken with the county clerk, the City of Conway spokesperson, community development, and code enforcement to better understand just how much of an impact this storm has had on local Horry County communities. Every time I spoke with a representative, I got the same response from each of them. No one seemed to know just how bad this flood was.
We really don't know, and we probably won't know until the beginning.
Somebody else to call you and give us answers, because I could probably dig them up, and I don't know exactly offhand.
I don't have that information. I know how much money we have given on flood insurance, but I don't know how many people have flood insurance in Horry County.
This was Maria Padron, a public information officer at the FEMA site at Horry Georgetown Technical College. A big problem affecting homeowners is just how much of a headache it is to attain flood insurance. FEMA requires it for those living in high-risk flood areas. However, when you ask representatives, sometimes that answer isn't clear. When I asked Maria, she told me that FEMA didn't require those living in flood risk areas to have flood insurance. But with the flood maps, people in those flood zones, are they required to have insurance?
Okay, once you get FEMA aid, you are required to have flood insurance.
Okay. But before you apply for aid, if you are in those flood zones, are you required to have...
No.
Okay.
No.
But to my understanding, Maria's answer was wrong, because the Flood Disaster Protection Act of 1973 made the purchase of flood insurance mandatory for the protection of property found in special flood hazard areas. But how does one know whether or not they need to purchase flood insurance? Well, that's where FEMA flood maps come in, which is another headache in itself. Because I understand that the flood maps haven't really been updated. FEMA's flood maps haven't been updated
Right.
since, I don't know, 60s.
Okay. I have to get back to you on those, on the flood maps.
Do you know why they haven't?
It takes a while. And we have been having all kinds of events.
To say the least, yeah.
Yeah, but you can call your emergency manager in Horry County, and he can talk to you about it.
About FEMA flood maps or about the county's flood maps?
They follow our plans or our maps.
Okay. After hearing Maria's answer, I was dumbfounded. A couple weeks prior to my conversation with Maria, I had spoken with a few Nahama volunteers who work in disaster relief and recovery.
Back when I was an office guy, I would hear complain all the time about outdated flood maps. And what you noticed was that in the high real estate development areas, the place that all the money's flowing into, those maps are up to date.
Exactly. Right.
The areas that are kind of forgotten, you'll find them going back to the 60s and the 70s. And those
maps are not up to date.
Exactly. And the whole flood, the whole drainage areas and drainage maps, they're not up to date. None of that is up to date, and then you end up in this situation where people who legally should have had flood insurance, because if you do fall in a floodplain that's recognized by those maps, they give you subsidized flood insurance. But a lot of these people, because those maps are outdated, nothing.
Because when I got ready to do this house, my mortgage company asked me if I had flood insurance, and of course I told them no. I checked with my building code enforcement department. They said I was not in the flood zone, so I didn't need the insurance. And of course I didn't get it. You know, Deborah better be careful. And I didn't have it. You know, I didn't buy it. But now I have it. I have it now, and will never be caught without it again. And some people are not going to be able to start over.
Right.
You know, their homes, they're not going to be able to start over. Some people didn't have any insurance.
Exactly.
And what FEMA doesn't give them to repair these homes, they aren't going to be able to do it. You know, some people don't have but one little income, and that's their little Social Security. They don't get but so much money.
Yeah, we losing everything this time. Everything but some of the clothes over there, they ain't in the closet.
Did you have flood insurance?
No. I have homeowners insurance. No flood insurance.
You couldn't afford it?
I couldn't get it.
She had flood insurance. She's been paying for a hotel out of pocket for 3 weeks. She's maxed out on her credit card. Now what?
The insurance company didn't pick it up?
Well, they're just telling her, you know, they're not answering her phone calls, you're not returning calls.
And they got flood insurance.
And she had flood insurance.
But nobody really can afford to go somewhere else and get a whole nother mortgage. You understand? Because have you seen the interest rates?
That's why they stay here, because it's their property.
Because that's the $1 million question. That's the $1 million question. Why they keep staying if they keep flooding? They can't afford to go somewhere else.
It hasn't kept flooding.
This is home. I used to live on this place right here. My grandmother and my daddy used to farm this. Right here where we standing at. So this is home.
So that means she been around a long time.
Yeah, been around a long time. Used to grade the back under them trees, Junior. Yeah, Lord.